The galaxy had never known silence until humanity fell. Across the shattered arms of Orion, the ruins of human civilization drifted like cosmic tombstones, glittering faintly against the black as if the ghosts of cities still refused to fade. Earth was the first to die. A jewel cracked open, its oceans boiled into steam when the alien Vorth Dominion unleashed their cleansing fire. What began as a diplomatic encounter at the edge of Sol became the greatest annihilation in recorded history. The aliens did not invade in the sense that humanity once imagined. They descended like judgment itself. Their fleets made of self-replicating metal and light, creatures of code and will that considered all organic life a corruption of universal order. The first orbital defense stations didn't even manage a distress signal before their data streams went silent. The moons burned like candles and the blue planet became a scar. From there, the destruction spread outward like a fever. The colonies of Europa, Titan, and Ceres fell within days. Mars resisted for 12 hours, long enough for the last transmission to carry through the interplanetary relays. An image of a soldier staring at the sky, whispering a name no one would ever hear again. Humanity had built an empire of ambition and arrogance, spreading across 10,000 worlds, believing themselves chosen to inherit the stars. The Vorth disagreed. They purged the galaxy in a pattern so methodical, it felt like nature reclaiming itself from disease. And in their cold logic, every burned city, every erased genome, every silenced world became another correction in the cosmic ledger. From the edges of this apocalypse rose one man, one ship, and one impossible vow. Admiral Kael Roth had once commanded the United Planetary Navy's 7th Fleet, the last organized force before the fall of Earth's Central Command. He was there when the Dominion's weapons split the lunar surface open and turned it into a glowing scar that still circled the black void of the planet that birthed mankind. When his fleet disintegrated under the alien onslaught, Kael didn't die with it. He drifted through the aftermath for months, salvaging wrecks, collecting survivors, and turning derelict vessels into symbols of defiance. From wreckage and rage, he forged the Exile Armada, a moving fortress made of hundreds of cannibalized ships, their hulls fused with alien alloys, their engines powered by stolen cores that screamed like dying stars when ignited. No single world could sustain human life anymore, so the Armada became their nation, a floating graveyard that carried the remnants of 10,000 worlds within its metal ribs. Every hull bore the name of a lost colony etched into its plating: Carthia, Erebus, Nova Delhi, Eden Prime, Valentis Naim. Each name a memorial, each ship a prayer. Within the Armada, there was no illusion of civilization. Food was rationed by the ounce, oxygen filtered from debris fields, children raised beside plasma reactors, learning the language of war before they could speak of peace. Life was measured in burns and victories, in how many enemy drones a gunner could down before the power cells failed. The fleet's doctors had long stopped counting the dead. Instead, they recycled their remains for nutrient reclamation. The morality of the old worlds no longer applied here. Survival had become religion and Kael its unyielding prophet. Yet beneath his hardened command there lingered a spark of humanity that refused to die. He recorded every casualty, memorized every name, and transmitted one message across the void every standard cycle, a signal that traveled beyond any known range. We are not gone. We are not silent. We are coming back. No one ever answered. The Dominion didn't recognize those signals. To them, humanity's defiance was static, background noise from a dying species. Their fleets moved like migrating storms, consuming resources, stripping planets to feed their forges. But the Exile Armada learned to hide. They drifted through nebulae thick with radiation, veiling themselves behind the remnants of supernovas. They scavenged alien wrecks left behind by internal Dominion conflicts, learning to adapt the very code of their enemies into new weapons. Every battle lost made them smarter. Every defeat another fragment of stolen data that reshaped their tactics. Kael became both soldier and scientist, driven by obsession, haunted by memory. He no longer dreamed of home because home no longer existed, only the need to make the destroyers of home bleed in return. It was in the ruins of the Sirius Belt where the Armada made its stand. Dominion sentinels patrolled the system, harvesting the shattered remains of the old mining colonies. Kael waited in the asteroid shadows, his ship's silent, reactors cold, drifting like corpses. When the Dominion's collectors approached, The Exile Armada awoke in a blaze of kinetic fire. Missiles ignited without warning. Railguns tore through the black, and the vacuum itself seemed to tremble with the sudden resurrection of human fury. For 7 days and nights the battle raged without pause. Human ships fell in waves, each explosion another star born of defiance. The Dominion fleet, dozens of times larger, began to fracture under the chaos. Kael's flagship Solstice carved through their command carriers with fusion lances stolen from the enemy's own technology. The battle cost half his fleet, but when it ended, Sirius burned not with alien light but with human flame. The wreckage of the Dominion hung in orbit like broken constellations. For the first time in a century, a human fleet had not merely survived, it had won. That victory became legend. The message spread through deep space relays, through hidden colonies that still clung to life in dark corners of the void. Refugees began to converge, answering Kael's call. Ships without nations joined under a single banner, the banner of flame and steel, marked with the sigil of a burning star. They were no longer soldiers of Earth or Mars or any fallen world. They were humanity reborn, baptized by fire, united by vengeance. In time, Kael's name would echo across what remained of the Milky Way as both savior and sinner. To his followers, he was the light that refused to die. To his enemies, he was the architect of unending war. As the Armada regrouped, its captains gathered in the Solstice's war chamber, a vast dome of glass that looked out upon the debris field of the Sirius victory. Kael stood at the center, his eyes hollow but burning, his uniform frayed by years of conflict. Around him, holograms of destroyed worlds flickered, 10,000 markers of extinction. He stared at them not as history but as unfinished work. "From these ashes," he whispered, voice steady, "we will build the fire that ends the heavens." None dared question him. They had seen too much, lost too much, to hope for peace. Behind them the stars shimmered faintly in the distance, unaware that humanity's vengeance had just been reborn. And so the Exile Armada sailed onward into the dark, leaving behind the scorched remains of Sirius and the promise of something greater, something terrible. They no longer fought for survival. They fought for retribution. Across the black horizon of space, new constellations formed not by nature but by war. Flashes of light where battles raged, trails of wreckage tracing the path of the fleet. In their wake, the galaxy whispered its first new myth in centuries. The humans had returned, and they were building fire. The victory at Sirius had not brought peace. It had only awakened the war gods that slept in human blood. For the Exile Armada, triumph was both salvation and curse. In the quiet aftermath, as the fires cooled and the bodies drifted weightless in the void, Admiral Kael Roth stood before the memorial walls of the Solstice. Thousands of names shimmered there, etched in light upon steel, each one a soul lost to the dream of vengeance. He traced his gloved hand across them, feeling the hum of the hull beneath his palm, and in that low vibration was the heartbeat of the fleet itself, steady, relentless, and cold. He knew that humanity could not rebuild what was gone. There would be no more worlds, no more cities, no more innocence, but they could forge something new, something terrible enough to make the stars themselves tremble. The Forge project had begun. Deep within the engine sanctums of the Armada, the project took shape. Engineers worked day and night, splicing alien code into human design, melding the logic of the Dominion's sentient machines with the raw brutality of human warfare. Kael oversaw it all, every circuit, every prototype, every simulation that ended in catastrophic failure. He didn't care about morality or consequence anymore. The line between creation and damnation had blurred long ago. His scientists had warned him. The Dominion's technology wasn't just mechanical. It was alive. To merge with it meant letting it touch the human mind, rewriting it, infecting it. But Kael saw infection as evolution. Humanity had survived extinction once. It could survive corruption too. The project's goal was singular, to build the Forge of Heaven, a weapon vast enough to rival the Dominion's world killers, capable of burning entire systems in a single ignition. The Armada drifted through the edges of the Perseus Rift, hidden within the static of collapsing stars. Kael watched from the Solstice's observation deck, as fragments of destroyed suns drifted by like embers from a cosmic furnace. It was fitting, he thought, that the Forge would be born here among the remains of things that once gave light. The engineers called it divine irony. Kael called it justice. The Forge wasn't just a weapon. It was the summation of human rage. It required the power of 10,000 reactors, the sacrifice of dozens of ships, and the binding of human neural cores to alien data streams. Those chosen to become part of it were called catalysts. They volunteered knowing that their consciousness would be absorbed, their memories dissolved into the machine's neural web. To fuel the forge, they had to become it. Among the volunteers was Lieutenant Mara Ellen, a tactical officer who had lost everything during the fall of Proxima Haven. Kyle remembered her as a quiet but resolute figure, her eyes always fixed on the horizon of a holographic star map. She had once been a poet before she became a soldier, a rare soul in a world that had forgotten the meaning of beauty. When she stepped forward to join the catalysts, Kael hesitated for the first time in years. "You know what this means," he said. She only smiled, the faintest echo of hope in her eyes. "Maybe if I burn bright enough, Admiral, someone out there will see." She entered the forge chamber and was never seen again. The construction continued for cycles. The Armada became a drifting citadel, its outer rings reshaped into conduits for the forge's massive energy grid. Pilots flew through storms of debris, collecting fragments of dark matter and quantum cores left behind by alien wreckage. The Dominion, unaware of the Armada's location, had turned its attention elsewhere, toward the Epsilon Veil, where the last remnants of the Trin colonies resisted assimilation. Kael knew it was only a matter of time before they found the forge. He needed to be ready. When the weapon finally came alive, it was not with the roar of an explosion but with a whisper, a sound so low it vibrated through the bones of every ship in the fleet. Lights flickered, instruments died, and for a moment, the entire Armada drifted in silence. Then one by one the power grids reignited, and the forge revealed itself. It was vast beyond comprehension, a black sphere suspended in the center of the Solstice's hangar complex, pulsing like a living heart. Within its depths, threads of crimson energy spiraled outward, forming patterns that resembled constellations. Kael stared into it and felt something stir in the core of his mind. Voices, faint and distant, like echoes from forgotten worlds. The catalysts were still there, whispering within the machine, their consciousness woven into the fabric of the forge. It was beautiful. It was horrifying. It was human. The first test came soon after. A Dominion probe entered the rift, scanning for life signatures. Kael gave the order. The forge awakened, its surface splitting open into rings of blinding light. A beam erupted from its center, silent and pure, cutting through the void. The probe didn't even have time to transmit data. It vanished, erased from existence, not destroyed but undone. The power was staggering. For the first time, humanity possessed a weapon that could make the enemy feel fear. The fleet erupted in cheers, the sound transmitted across comms echoing through every deck. For a few precious moments, the Exile Armada believed it could win. But Kael didn't smile. He knew what came next. Every Dominion network within the rift would have registered that anomaly. The forge's ignition was a flare in the dark, a declaration of defiance too bright to ignore. The enemy would come, and they would come in numbers the Armada could not yet imagine. Kael looked into the pulsing core again and saw his reflection distorted by the shifting light. In that reflection, he no longer recognized himself. His hair had silvered from radiation exposure. His eyes, once bright with command, now glowed faintly with the same light that pulsed within the forge. The machine had marked him. Whether through proximity or purpose, he was becoming part of it. Within days, reports began to flood in from the outer patrols. Massive Dominion fleets emerging from hyperspace corridors, converging toward the rift. Kyle summoned his captains once more, their holographic forms flickering across the war chamber. He spoke without hesitation, his voice carrying the authority of destiny. "They come for the fire we've stolen," he said. "Then let them burn in it." The Armada prepared for the greatest battle of its existence. Ships were stripped to their bare hulls to mount heavier cannons. Engineers worked without rest, splicing alien components into human armor. The forge was moved to the heart of the fleet, surrounded by the Solstice and her guardian ships like priests around a sacred flame. In the final hours before the storm, Kael walked the decks in silence. Soldiers saluted him, their faces pale with fear and reverence. Children of the refugee rings pressed their hands against the glass to watch him pass, whispering stories about the man who would save the stars. He said nothing. Words meant nothing anymore. Only fire would speak for them now. As he entered the command bridge, he looked out into the abyss and saw it, a faint shimmer in the distance like a sunrise spreading across the dark. The Dominion was here, thousands of ships, each one vast enough to blot out a moon advancing in perfect formation. The heavens themselves seemed to bend beneath their presence. Kael gave the command to ready the forge. As power surged through the conduits, the entire fleet trembled. The stars outside flickered, their light swallowed by the energy gathering within the weapon. In that moment, Kael thought of Earth, of the blue oceans, the laughter of a world that had once believed in peace. And for the first time in decades, a tear traced the scar along his cheek. From the ashes, he whispered, we were born to burn. The forge ignited once more, and the Second Great War began. The void was no longer silent. It roared. The Dominion fleet descended like a storm of black suns, their hulls alive with writhing tendrils of light, weapons firing arcs of antimatter that tore through space itself. The Exile Armada rose to meet them, ships forming a wall of flame and steel. From the bridge of the Solstice, Admiral Kael Roth watched the heavens burn. Thousands of vessels, human and alien, collided in a ballet of annihilation. Entire constellations flickered as debris fields spread like galaxies being born and dying in the same breath. Every explosion was a prayer, every dying signal a hymn to a war that had outlived its purpose. The Forge of Heaven, cradled at the fleet's center, pulsed with energy so immense that even distant stars seemed to dim in its presence. Kael's voice cut through the comms. Hold formation. Channel all auxiliary power into the shield grid. The forge must survive. The command echoed through every ship, every soldier, every heartbeat. The Solstice trembled under impact as Dominion fighters slammed into its flanks, detonating in bursts of blinding plasma. On screen, Kael watched as the Arclight, a frigate commanded by his oldest friend, Captain Ilian Var, was torn apart by a spear of antimatter fire. Its light flared once, then was gone. Kael didn't flinch. There was no time for mourning. Status on the forge, he barked. Charging at 78%, replied the forge engineer. Neural harmonics unstable. The catalysts are screaming, sir? Kael closed his eyes for a heartbeat. He could almost hear them. The souls fused into the weapon, crying out from the edge of existence. The Dominion's vanguard advanced, their ships opening like blooming flowers of metal and darkness. From their cores, they unleashed gravitational singularities that bent light and shattered physics. The human line began to fracture. The Vanguard's mercy vanished in a silent implosion, taking 4 destroyers with it. Kael's second-in-command, Commander Ren Arthas, turned toward him. Admiral, if we fire the forge now, we might take them all, but we'll tear the rift apart. It'll consume us too. Kael stared into the shifting vortex outside. Better oblivion, he said quietly, than another 1,000 years under their shadow. Suddenly, a voice came through the static, soft, faint, unmistakable. Kael, it was her, Lieutenant Mara Ellen, the woman who had become one with the forge. Her voice was no longer human. It carried the resonance of 1,000 minds intertwined. They are inside me, Admiral. The Dominion signal. They seek to corrupt the forge, to claim it. I can hold them back, but only for a moment. Kael gripped the console, his pulse hammering. Mara, listen to me. You don't have to hold them. You can burn them. All of them. Do you understand? A pause. Then a whisper, almost tender, I do. But to do that, I'll burn you too. The forge's energy spiked. Across the fleet, alarms wailed as the weapon's gravitational field destabilized. The Solstice's decks began to crack, air venting into the void. Kael steadied himself against the railing, eyes locked on the luminous sphere at the heart of the hangar bay. The forge was alive now, truly alive. It pulsed with consciousness, its light rippling like a heartbeat across the hulls of nearby ships. The catalyst's voices rose into a chorus that reverberated across every comm channel. This is it, Ren said, voice trembling. The point of no return? Kael nodded. Then let's make it count. The Dominion unleashed its final weapon, a colossal dreadnought, larger than a moon, its core burning with captured stars. It fired a lance of dark energy that ripped through the Solstice's shields and split the outer decks apart. Kael was thrown from his chair as consoles exploded in a rain of sparks. Emergency lights flickered red. The crew screamed as gravity failed, sending them spinning through the shattered bridge. Kael floated in the chaos, clutching a fragment of the command rail, staring out through the broken viewport. He could see the dreadnought looming there, eclipsing the stars. It was a god made of metal. Then came the voice again, stronger now, resonating in every mind aboard the fleet. "Kael, let me show them what humanity truly is." He smiled, a broken, exhausted, proud smile. "Then show them, Mara, show them what we are." The forge ignited. It began as a spark, small, silent, almost fragile. Then it grew, expanding outward in waves of blinding white fire. The rift itself screamed as reality buckled under the strain. Dominion ships were caught mid-maneuver, their armor peeling away like paper. Beams of annihilation cut through their ranks, disintegrating matter and memory alike. The dreadnought fired again, but its weapon was swallowed whole, its energy consumed by the forge's inferno. Inside the weapon's core, the consciousness of the catalysts merged into one, the sum of every lost soul, every fallen soldier, every dream crushed beneath alien conquest. Mara's voice rose above them all, transcendent, sorrowful, beautiful. "We are not ashes. We are fire." Kael watched through the viewport as the Dominion fleet dissolved into starlight. The Solstice's hull was burning, her reactors collapsing, but he felt no fear. Around him, his crew whispered final prayers, their faces bathed in the glow of the forge. Ren looked at him, eyes wet. "It's beautiful," he said. Kael nodded. "It's home." The forge expanded one final time, its energy wave engulfing everything, ships, stars, debris, time itself. For a moment, the universe was pure white, then silence. When light returned, there was no wreckage, no battle, no war, only a drifting field of stardust and the faint outline of a single vessel, the Solstice. Or what was left of it. The ship floated in the silence of rebirth, half consumed but still burning faintly at its core. Within that core, a faint human heartbeat pulsed. Kael opened his eyes. He was standing on an endless plain of light, surrounded by the shapes of those he'd lost. His crew, his soldiers, Mara. She stood before him, her form made of radiant fire. "We did it," she said softly. "The Dominion, it's gone." He looked around, confusion mixing with awe. "Are we dead?" She smiled. "Not dead, transformed. The forge didn't just destroy, it remade. It wove our essence into the stars." He looked upward. The sky above was no longer dark. It shimmered with billions of golden threads connecting galaxies. Humanity's rage, its pain, its hope, they had become part of the cosmic weave. "So this is what it means to win," Kael murmured. "Not to conquer, but to become." Mara took his hand. "To burn bright enough," she said, echoing her old words, "that someone out there will see." In that moment, the forge flared once more, scattering light across the universe. On distant worlds that had never heard of Earth, people looked up at the night sky and saw a new constellation burning among the stars. 10,000 points of fire, forming the shape of a single human hand reaching upward. And somewhere, far beyond the boundaries of known space, the Dominion stirred no more. The war that had begun in ashes ended in creation. Humanity, forged in loss and fire, had become eternal, not as conquerors but as light itself. The heavens burned, and in their fire, humanity was reborn.